I'm Natalia Lobach, and this is Change Course. Transition, then transform. You can't change everything, everywhere, all at once. So I had a really interesting conversation with a new entrepreneurial CEO this week. And what was really interesting about this conversation was that there was a clear need to transition before there could be any transformation. So this new CEO that I met, she is going to be going on this journey to take over her family business. And it's just such an incredible opportunity, and one that to me is like one of the most amazing things that can ever happen to a person. I can't even tell you how excited I am for her to take this on, because it's an incredible business. And not only that, but she's grown up in this business. It's her parents and another family member who brought this business to life and built it over many, many years. She's been a part of the business, so she's worked there as a student and a young person, and now wants to take over this business, continue her family's legacy, and really bring this organization and its mission to a whole new level. I mean, what an incredible, incredible opportunity. Interestingly, I come from an entrepreneurial family as well, and different levels of entrepreneurship within the family and various levels of quote unquote family business. The interesting thing is that when you're a founder of a business, it's really, you focus so much on putting the business together, really giving birth to something new, building it and sustaining it, that often we don't think about what the next step is, or what happens when we're ready to put it down. What happens when we're ready to move on to the next phase of our lives or do something different? Because when you are a founder and the main operator in your business, you can be so wrapped up, your identity can be wrapped up in the business. Everything that you do, everything that you think, everything that you know is really all about that. It's your life's work. And sometimes the idea of detaching yourself from that life's work or changing your relationship to it is all but impossible to even fathom. So the challenge that this entrepreneur brought me, this CEO brought me, is that she sees so many opportunities for change in the business, so many opportunities to improve operations, to streamline things, to use technology and automation to improve processes, to improve services, to improve customer delivery. She sees an incredible opportunity through bolstering up the business with the use of technology for many of the operational processes to be able then to grow the business and to take it to the next level. So the way that she saw the problem is that it is the biases of the founders to want to do things the way they've always done them. It's the bias of the people who are currently the owner operators, that this is the way we've always done it and we can't change this because we've tried things and it hasn't worked, and this is the way we've always done it. It works just let us do it. And her interpretation was, I'm trying to bring in changes and they keep on telling me that nothing's going to work. And so we talked a little bit about what was happening in the business and the status of her transition and all of the above. And what was really interesting to me was that it started to become very clear that the founders of the business haven't fully internalized or accepted the transition. And this is where we get into, again, this deep, deep well of emotional response to change and how we tie up our emotion in change and often our identity into our work. I've talked a little bit about the relationship between identity, personal identity, and work, and how that can be detrimental for change. And it's so true in the environment where building a business has been your life's work. It becomes a part of your identity, and it's very hard to separate from that. So the thing that we talked about most was not how to change. It was not how to implement this new change or get people to adopt it or work through automation. We didn't talk about that at all, because what we really needed to talk about was how we have to help the founders transition before we can transform the business. And for all intents and purposes, the business is fine. It's doing okay. It's making a profit. It's actually doing well. The transformation that this new CEO envisions is one that will really take the business to the next level. It's not that the business isn't doing well. The business is actually great, right? And that's, I think, where part of the issue lies. If everything's okay, why change it? But also, we have to start with the transition. Now, from a connected change perspective, this is really looking at the power balance. So right now, even though this new entrepreneur is CEO in name, she's really CEO in name only. And the people that she's going to take on the business from, the people who have to transition the role to her, are still holding on really, really tight. They're still calling the shots. They're still making the decisions. They're really acting like a de facto board of directors, but still actually doing executive roles in the organization. And so they, I think, view it as her coming in as another pair of hands where they can start to kind of let go, but that she's really just another pair of hands that are going to come in and continue on what they've been doing all this time. And this is where I've actually had this conversation and facilitated this conversation with another small business that was looking at this point in transition. Because honestly, you do come to a point in the life of the business and maybe in your own personal life where you want to do something different, but you don't know how to move on. You don't know how to transition. This is such a difficult thing, and it's such an emotional minefield. It can be very, very hard. So the conversation that I told this CEO about was one that I'd had with a small business. And one of the things that's really important is that there needs to be a clear discussion and a clear understanding of a transition point and clarity around what that transition symbolizes, but also what that transition tactically means. So if you are going to be passing the torch, so to speak, to the next person, when does that happen? How does that happen? And what does it look like afterwards? To me, what I was seeing was a problem of vision, a problem of alignment of the vision. And so I asked these questions. And when I did this with another small entrepreneurial business, these were the questions that I asked. What does it look like to you to transition this business? What does your role look like? Speaking to the founders, what does your role look like? How do things look like after you've transitioned the business? Are you still involved? Are you doing other things? Wouldn't you just like to maybe go to Fiji for like a month and just enjoy this time and this legacy that you've built by taking some well-deserved time off? These are the questions that you need to ask, because what needs to happen is there needs to be the clear transition. And in order to make space for a new person to come in, the hard part is that the founders will need to let go of a few things. So this is where when I talked to this new CEO, her response to me was, that's terrifying. It's terrifying to think about having a conversation like that, especially with people that you love and you care about because they're part of your family, especially in the context of a family business. This is really, really hard. So we talked a lot about how to approach this with a sense of caring and a sense of love and a sense of legacy. When I unpacked this with the other organization that I was working with, legacy started to become the most important thing, that the work would continue, that the legacy wouldn't be lost, that there was something to show for the work that had been completed. It wasn't about money. A lot of people have this bias that they think that, all this stuff is about money. It's all about selling the business and, getting your money's worth or making bank on all the work that you've done. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes there are other things that they want. Things like legacy, things like wanting to see their children continue and be successful in something that's brought them so much joy. The other thing I talked about was fear. What are the fears that they might have for you? Are they afraid that you're committing yourself to a lifestyle and a pace of life that is going to prevent you from doing certain things? Maybe they don't want that for you. Maybe that's part of why they're holding on so hard, is because they're afraid. There's certain things they have fears for you. And so there is a point at which that conversation is necessary, and it's a strategic conversation. So tactically, when I do this with organizations, we typically take it to an offsite at a time that works for the business. So you don't want to be doing this in the middle of year end. You don't want to be doing this in the busy season of your business. This is not the time. Not the time. Because you need space and you need the ability to think things through when you have this discussion. How I like to structure it, typically 2-day strategy retreat. So in person, especially because it's a very small group and because it's highly emotional, you want the people in the room. And usually with small business, it is a smaller group, but it's really, really important that you have people in the same space because it is so vulnerable. On the first day, what we typically do is we talk about the vision, we talk about the fears, we talk about all of that heavy, hard stuff. We talk about letting go. We talk about what that looks like, what that means. I mean, it's like intense therapy, what we do. Oh man. But then we take a break. And so we do a lot of heavy lifting in the first day. We confront a lot of really difficult emotions. And then we come back for the second day. And the second day is where we start to build the future. That is where we actually say, what am I doing? What are you going to do? What does this pathway look like? How are we actually going to build this? How are we actually going to do this? And so we get tactical and we get real and we get measurable on the second day so that when your new CEO walks out of the room, they have a plan. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly how to hold the others in the organization accountable to that plan. And not only that, but everybody's in agreement. We're on the same page. We're in this together. We're going somewhere. And yes, there is a lot of pain that can come out of this. There's a lot of emotion. And I'm not saying it's easy. It can be a really bumpy road as you go through those discussions. But at the end, what you get out of it is something that serves each of the people involved as well as serves the business. So I hope you found this helpful. It's a little bit of a different type of discussion than we've had in the past. The second thing I want to mention is that you can't transform the organization until after this discussion has happened. Because if you are coming in as the new CEO, but everyone is still in place in their same roles and their same thinking and the same way of doing things, without internalizing and thinking, this is the path we're on, this is how we are going to tactically do this transition, this is how we're going to let go, this is how we're going to leave our legacy. You can't have the conversation about how you're going to make the business better unless you've done that transition work before. So no, you cannot change everything everywhere all at once. In this context, it is going to be a huge failure. It is not going to be successful. I do not recommend it. But what you do need to do is transition before you transform. If you're in that CEO chair and you want to make changes, you got to do the transition first. You got to make sure that that transition is clear and accountable and on its way before you can start to change things. So that was my advice to the founder, and I hope that you found this helpful. Again, a little different than what we talk about in big organizational change. But I do have to say it's really important in this kind of a context in a small business or even a small charitable organization. There's a lot out there that work this way. You've got to know what the plan is. Are you continuing? Are you going to close the business? Are you going to sell it? What do you want as a founder out of your next phase? Do you want to go completely hands off? Do you not want to be involved at all? Do you want to still be involved a little bit? Do you still want to have some financial gains or financial outputs that come from the business to you as the founder as things move on and go on in time? These are all questions that you're going to need to work through before you can start unpacking the bigger ball of wax or the bigger, into that other Pandora's box of transformation. And what can we actually do to make this business better and thrive and accelerate into the future and be amazing and profitable going forward? So, transition before you transform. Make sure you actually have that power seat, that you know where you're sitting from a connected change perspective, that you have the decision making and the driving power before you can actually start to drive and work through the transformation that you want to see. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, I invite you to like, share, rate, and subscribe because it helps others find us. Change Course is brought to you by Chart House Advisory Services and ConnectedChange.com. Our music is Levity by Emily Clausen. Show notes have moved. We're now at ConnectedChange.com. So visit us there under the Change Course podcast page, and you'll find a list of all the resources that I've mentioned here today. While you're visiting us, sign up for the Change Navigator newsletter. You'll keep on top of all things change, and every month we are sharing exclusive content and resources only with our subscribers. So don't miss out. Sign up at ConnectedChange.com. Thank you for listening, and remember, it's never too late to change course.